You have to give him a lot of benefit of the doubt. This particular person was being quite the asshole on Reddit. I'm calling you out, person I don't remember the name of, but probably isn't in my chat anyways. I bought enough time, guys. My incessant rambling has finally done something. Oh my god. In the top left of a fresh best of 3, we do have ShoWTimE. And in the top right, it is Spirit. So TVP, which I'm happy to cast. Just a little worried that it was going to take forever to actually get here. Let's get some bets going. Alright, so PvT, love little matchup. Spirit's been experimenting with a bit more aggression, kind of acknowledging, I suppose, the state of the matchup as a whole. But aside from that, I do feel like has been, as a player, outside of the meta, maybe just 15% cheesier than once believed. So yeah, it's, what was I talking about? I'm laughing at that. Oh yeah, Peter being a little bit cheesier, but he's not doing it here today, so that's, not game number 1 anyways. ShoWTimE also went through his little phase of actually being extremely cheesy, and it was in the open cups, but at this point, years ago actually, I think pretty much the start of it, that I would say that ShoWTimE was more experimenting, and then kind of, not rubber banded back. I would kind of insinuate that he regretted his time cheesing, but definitely had his time of trying different things and then said, you know what, this is where I'm comfortable. So ShoWTimE still, to this day, is probably more like 75% of a macro player, and then maybe the matchup of PvP can change that up. So they've kind of both, in the past, been very much known for being two very macro players. So if you got them together, you might even be kind of preparing your resident sleepers because it's going to be a super turtle game. But nowadays, that's really not the case. The meta, the maps, the players continuing to kind of adapt and grow. So we have Spirit going for a proxy starport, which, to be fair, has always been one of, the cheeses to throw into a best of series. It's like B1, right? But Spirit has also been doing like the Woodamine drop on one base into even Thor pushes, which I still find kind of comical, even though they're very understandable. They actually do have a lot of power. And this is going to be a good old-fashioned Hellion drop. And that means that ShoWTimE would really love to see if it was 2 extra Hellions, because that would be the really big signifier that there is potential for a proxy starport. If this was 2 Hellions and 2 Woodamines, obviously there's still potential for a proxy starport. It's just a little less so, because 2 Hellions don't one-shot that probe, wouldn't be as effective, and the Woodamines crawling all the way across the map to be picked up in a medevac is like, what? Why? So that would have been helpful. ShoWTimE is unable to see that, but looks to just be very apprehensive in general. So as opposed to sending that Oracle across the map, which would have been able to see, I guess, the factory lifting off as he got Hellion dropped, he's kept it at home. But did I speak too soon? Where's... Oh, there it is. Yeah, so yeah, exactly. So he keeps it at home. If it was nothing, if it was just 2 Hellions and 2 Woodamines, and then eventually into a bit of a drop, 9 probes go down to this, by the way, then maybe the Oracle could be seen as like a lost opportunity. But even then, what do we really expect from an Oracle? Not many SCV kills, a little bit of scouting, and for the most part, they'd have kind of scouted enough to tip off what ShoWTimE should be primarily worried about, which is exactly this. Unfortunately, even if you're basically in the know, right? Basically in the know, it's still very difficult to actually defend against this. It should be a little bit easier when you know what direction the units are most likely coming from. So if you guess it's over here, but it's actually coming over here, that's a big mistake, and vice versa. But even though ShoWTimE was in a bit of a proper position, it still resulted in a decent amount of damage, and ShoWTimE is the one now looking to get some revenge damage, but with units that just really aren't capable of getting a lot. The Adepts kind of have some potential, and actually, they do get into the main base, but so far away from the SCV line, you gotta agree with that cancel. It just wouldn't have been as effective as ShoWTimE would hope. So ShoWTimE takes 10 probe deaths and doesn't really do anything in return. Only ahead by now 3 probes. That is terrible and is clearly, question mark, messing up. You do not see ShoWTimE waver to this extent. Every professional player wavers. Everyone starts to kind of drop all their limes, but two Twilight Councils is actually pretty bad. That's, yeah. That's gonna be a shake of the head for sure. For surezies. Charge's on the way from the first Twilight Council, and he did cancel a second one, so that's good. That's good. I suppose that would have delayed maybe this Immortal, for instance. But that's a bad sign. Maybe it doesn't ultimately matter. Maybe ShoWTimE does waver for a second, but then is right back on track. Definitely an experienced professional who you would guess would get right back on track. But the actual game itself still doesn't feel that great, does it? Now ahead by 8 workers, which is where you'd want to be in this matchup, but it's taken a little while to get there. And Spirit is working on a 3rd base on location, that confident in this game, despite even a couple of air units flying around, which could absolutely delay this. Spirit doesn't care. At worst, they would delay it. They wouldn't even kill it, right? The air units have been kept back at home. ShoWTimE going into Phoenix Charge Colossus. Don't need that blink if you have enough Phoenix to help out instead. Great Revelation's gonna see the entirety of the army. But can we actually defend it is the question. ShoWTimE's shield batteries are well thought out, but not necessarily protected. Oh, both Cyclones getting no, fuck. Words are hard today. Both Cyclones getting the lock on might have resulted in Spirit even kind of letting them die for it, but only one was not enough, and the second lock on was also not enough. So the shield battery, again, doing credit to its placement, is working out fine. It looks like Spirit really, really wants to get one of these shield batteries, because that is the downside of these placements, is that they're just a little bit farther forward. So if you are a little bit out of position, you don't know exactly where the Terran's pushing in from, they could probably be sniped super easily. But the benefit of them is that you don't have to completely back into your natural to use them, which then would open up the opportunity to hit the 3rd base. Same for the 3rd base. You don't have to completely, you know, go down to your 3rd base to defend and then be late to arriving to the north or even further. Again, especially if you don't know where the Terran army is. This allows you to kind of pick a place and sit there and still have enough defense and just enough time in case they were to, say, like, snipe the Nexus. That would be a very, very dangerous thing for Spirit to do. So well thought out indeed. It looks like I don't see an observer, but maybe ShoWTimE knows about the Widow Mines? Oh, maybe not. Okay, yeah, he does. Revelation coming in and saves the Oracle as well while taking the engagement. Does want to have the option to back away. Unfortunately, the Widow Mines do go down, not causing any further complications, because they could have. Imagine the Colossus targeting the Widow Mines as the Bio Army pounces. That would have been 4 6 Colossus splash. That would have gone the wrong direction. But despite a great start for Spirit, we do seem to be having kind of a level playing field. The biggest difference right now is that ShoWTimE doesn't have any upgrades, significantly delaying any Forge production to try and survive has worked out well. Now we have Double Forge on the way, a couple of Chrono Boosts later, and they probably won't be all that different when it comes to the 2-2 upgrades. Spirit is continuing to be very aggressive with the expansions, and more power to him. ShoWTimE has been clearly on the defensive, on his heels, not really confident in using anything to send across the map. The Phoenix, the Oracle, even a couple of Zealots, until just this moment. It's actually a pretty good thing, too. ShoWTimE has waited this long, as the Phoenix are still very important. They have been alerted to this drop. I know it was the Vikings initially, but the Vikings necessarily... Oh, well, maybe didn't. Maybe didn't, actually. He actually thought those were just the Vikings. Oh, well, this is awkward. That big drop in the main is going to be too big to handle. No, it's probably enough Zealots. Maybe without the upgrades? That would have been enough Zealots without the Vikings. Maybe. But with the Vikings especially, it's going to require a lot more Zealots. And that's maybe where ShoWTimE starts to crumble. 30 armor supply down. You can't exactly split that type of army. even if you did it technically perfectly, it'd just be so difficult. You really need to help stack defense, which ShoWTimE did not have enough of. A little tip with the Vikings, as I said, I thought it was a tip, it wasn't, but even if it was, you do have to wonder, could ShoWTimE have paired up his army perfectly, split his army perfectly to actually take care of this? I don't think so, not looking that way anyways. Colossus number 2 does go down. Decent disruptor shot though. That was damn decent actually. That just helped a lot, but probes have been going down. Maybe not as many as is necessary. Spirit's actually starting to lose a lot of army supply. What was a 30 army supply difference is now just about more like a 20 army supply difference. The Vikings are kind of comical at this point. There's nothing to shoot up. We're working on Blink, but we have yet to work on the stalker count. Drops are continuing to go on, but they look like they are finally officially going to be cleaned up, and it is all about this attack down to the south. EMP to take care of the shield battery and the recall, perhaps? Both, either, whatever the point is. The army didn't have to recall. It was almost already here. Another decent disruptor shot helps out. Vikings find a free pick on a warp prism that was kind of randomly placed down here, as they have been allowed to just bully the skies this entire time, but the Stalkers finally push them away, at least for a little bit. I mean, they still have 6 Vikings that could come in for a backstab at any point. And ShoWTimE has to actually consider those. Legitimately. 16 probes in total went down, but ShoWTimE, I believe, was producing probes every now and again through all this harassment, so still sticking at 69. Seems like a decent enough count for 4 bases. And while Spirit was quick to getting 4th base on location, because he built it on location, wasn't actually that quick to building a planetary. I'm not sure exactly when that finished. Maybe I'm wrong and this was about as quickly as it could be, but I'm pretty sure that finished a long time ago. And the focus was all on the micro and the multitasking, so this was delayed both in mining as well as turning into that defensive planetary. Fortunately, the lack of planetary doesn't really bother Spirit's tempo. His army was already over there waiting to engage something, and the planetary will finish, but it wasn't as seamless of mining as perhaps it could have been. Spirit is also already working on the 5th base, however, so still expanding at a rather rapid rate. Definitely almost said rapid rate. And where are the upgrades now? I said that 2-2 probably wouldn't be all that different between the two. It does look like Spirit's had a lead for maybe even a couple of the fights, and is going to have a lead of 2-2 over 1-1 for about 30 seconds. But, especially with a couple of Chrono boosts, they should match up equal on upgrades for an engagement's actually taken. Especially because ShoWTimE is able to see this army, click on it, and say, oh shit, I'm down in upgrades. He should purposely avoid the engagement, which I think is currently happening. Disruptors do end up tagging the tail end of some of the army on the south side. Doesn't leave a lot of disruptor shots. Oh, 6 disruptors, actually. Oh, yeah, that's a decent amount. Gotta be careful, for sure. The rest of the army gets pounced upon. The rest of the army's all not that intimidating, especially without those upgrades, which finally did finish. But with disruptors, Spirit's the one that has to take a lot of precaution. Another good disruptor shot for ShoWTimE, while doing some DT harass, which I believe either canceled or killed the building command center. It looks like it killed it. And then distracted Spirit, which helped cause the disruptor in the middle of the map to get that damage done. DT's on the south side as well. Now note, this is a hefty investment for a guy in ShoWTimE's position. Oh, especially this planetary, which is in fact not going to go down. This is an absolute choice. If this was 20 minutes into the game, everyone has all their bases, and it's 3,000 versus 3,000, the DTs kind of are broken. It's kind of stupid how good they are, right? It's kind of a freebie decision to do that to a certain extent. But in this case, both of them without a bank. ShoWTimE actually still not maxed out. That DT decision was an important one, but this might be even more important. Pouncing on that planetary and keeping the bio off the back with the disruptors and getting those good shots as well, causing us to do a little bit of a base trade. Shield battery overcharge going to try and save the Nexus, which in fact it does. And with the recall, we're going to have the Terran army pushed back. ShoWTimE winning on 2 different fronts. Really 3, I guess. I think he just cleaned up more reinforcements that are coming out here, and all of a sudden Spirit is on the ropes. ShoWTimE playing a fabulous game from behind. Maybe not catastrophically behind, like, wow, what a throw from Spirit type situation, but certainly behind. And then handling the biggest crisis of this game, all those drops and multitasking. I guess with the experience you would expect from a guy like ShoWTimE, he just handled it smoothly, didn't let things get too catastrophic, too chaotic. And ShoWTimE will take game number 1. And it kind of felt like that was Spirit's game. Again, not in a... Wow, I can't believe he threw this kind of way, but... From the probe kills to the double Twilight Council showing that ShoWTimE was a little off-kilter. That was promising for Spirit, but didn't deliver. And now I have a cat trying to move my mic. Cat.
Thank you for becoming a member.
Flesh, flesh. Thank you for that tier 1 sub. Also, at the beginning of the day, I think we had a Prime sub, Rolo SC, as well as Haplo and Dogs for the 35 months. Thank you very much, guys. Gosh darn it. In the bottom left, up 1, we have ShoWTimE. Top right, Blue Terran is Spirit. Gotta get a bigger desk when we move. It's the #1 goal. Get a bigger desk so that the cat has more space to sit. So ShoWTimE doing a great job recovering from last game. Both in-game as well as mentally. Spirit probably a little disappointed in how that went, right? The beginning was promising. His follow-up was promising. Seemed like he was getting everything he wanted to do. He got the damage done. He got his command center on location and another command center on location. He ended up getting a drop that was not quickly responded to. Initially, not well responded to, right? But it still wasn't enough to actually kill ShoWTimE. ShoWTimE was a little bit worse. And a couple more probes killed in the beginning. That could have been enough, maybe. That I think absolutely could have started the snowball. But instead, even after an initial problem... I'm trying to fix my mic now. ShoWTimE still was actually okay. Still handled the multi-prong pressure down 30 supply very well. We'll see what Spirit's plans are. So we do usually look towards the Terran. Both of them, with their typical macro expansions, however, could open up a difference. ShoWTimE does send that probe off to the south and to the right, I guess, as well. Most likely for a proxy Stargate. He did send the probe off to hide in the last game, but then ended up just using it to scout. This one, staying put, building a pylon, definitely for the proxy Stargate. So ShoWTimE is the one that's going to set the pace a little bit. Spirit's not going to have any knowledge of this proxy with absolutely no scouting on the field. No SCV scout, no Reaper scout. Spirit's going to be waiting until the Hellions get a scout, which if he sends them across the map quickly, I mean, they'll get there in time to maybe have a pull on the SCVs, but not much more, right? And that's if the Hellions literally go across the map immediately. But that is one hell of a proxy Stargate, so you don't have much time to figure out what to do. If this is a quad Hellion opener, which unfortunately it's not, then yeah, there's something that shoots up really. There's a couple of Marines, which 4 Marines do take on an Oracle, but then second Oracle pops up. It gets a little bit weird. Or if these Adepts manage to kill any amount of Marines. But Widow Mines are going to be a little more helpful if they're placed. And now is not, that is now the rub. That is the question. Are they going to be picked up with the Medivac, fly away, and then the Oracle, or hell, even 2 Oracles? Nope, ShoWTimE's not going to stack them. Appear into the main base. It is just going to be the one right off the bat into a Phoenix. And the Oracle, the 3-shot, not really going to get all that many SCVs. Gets a scout on what his opponent's doing, which the Adept only got so much information. Playing with fire right there. Moving back into the Widow Mine, moving back into the Marines, but ShoWTimE knows his Oracle. It survives, injured but alive, and 5 SCVs went down. Again, the scout on the Widow Mine drop and the Medivac, and now the knowledge is there. So how about the execution? ShoWTimE doesn't have any sort of wall that he can use to add to the defense against 4 Hellions and a Widow Mine drop, right? If you could just wall off the Hellions, then all you gotta worry about is a Widow Mine drop. But now it's both, and that is going to be very, very tricky for the Protoss to defend. Having a shield battery in both mineral lines is already a great start, but it is currently only in one. I say both mineral lines, just in case the Hellions did go up to the main base. They do not. They stuck around in the natural, get 9 probes, which is still pretty damn effective. And now the Wood Mines go into the main base, which a shield battery couldn't help anyways. Oh, no. Jesus. Okay, yeah, that's game. That is it. That is it. ShoWTimE, as I was saying, had the knowledge, but maybe wasn't expecting 4 Hellions. Maybe he was only expecting 2. And then clearly just the timing, little off timing there from Spirit. I would not be surprised if ShoWTimE knew, okay, 4 Hellions in the natural, and then I gotta look out for the Wood Mine drop. And then he did. He literally responded to the Hellions, looked back to his main for the Wood Mine drop, not probably with his actual mouse, but with his eyes in the mini-map, saw nothing, and then went back to focusing on the control of the natural. And then that's when Spirit moved in. So the off timing working wonders for Spirit. And ShoWTimE was just obviously delayed in the pull. And when he pulled, he actually made it worse. So that is probably game. If ShoWTimE can get some really extreme counter damage, and that would have been the only difference. But so far, not so good. Almost losing 2 Phoenix right there, but they're severely injured, which is also not great. And obviously no opening to do economic damage to the opponent. So Spirit has a 9-worker lead, which doesn't sound all that bad, I suppose, considering how much damage was done. It sounds like it should be worse, right? But it's still very bad for the matchup. Kind of add 8 to the Terran if they have 2 mules. And now, what, 53 versus 39? That sounds a lot worse, right? ShoWTimE does have maybe the biggest thing from all of that is that he actually got his Nexus down, and it was building during all the harassment. So he's had triple pro production. That's why he's catching up. But 150 minerals at a time after that severe of a probe loss is a lot to invest into. So there's not much else that ShoWTimE has, certainly army-wise. Gonna try and take the engagements, maybe hoping that just kind of pouncing on it would surprise Spirit, and Spirit would have just too few units or lacking the micro to help out. But that was really not the case. There was no benefit to trying to take a defense anywhere else, though, as there was no shield battery. With a shield battery, I wonder if that would have been fine. But obviously, with a shield battery, Spirit would have taken a different engagement. Yeah, ShoWTime's still in a ton of trouble. I'm actually surprised. After that Wood Mine hit, I am actually surprised that ShoWTimE did not just immediately tap out. that really seemed like the type of hit that most players would understandably tap out with. Especially because it wasn't a 1-base all-in. It was a 2-base setup from Spirit, so... ShoWTimE must have some experience in still recovering, even after the fact. But this is not what I would say is really recovering. Again, he seems to be choosing the right options to survive so far. And maybe the map distance is also helping him out a little bit here. Spirit's follow-up attacks aren't particularly quick. But they're about to get quicker with Stim and Medivacs. More dangerous as well, just with a better Terran army. And now ShoWTimE is trying to get another amazing Disruptor shot to help him out. Which he did last game. I don't know if that was really what made the difference of him living and winning in that game or not, but it definitely helped during all that multitasking to take away probably, 18 supply of the army of your opponent. He's got to do that again. But these are, I don't know, easier battles to judge and anticipate, I think, for Spirit. We'll see. We'll see. Going for the multitasking is a surefire way to defeat an opponent who has far less army supply. And that is actually what is going to cause ShoWTimE to tap out. As his 4th base is also about to be canceled. The only way splitting up your army when you have more of it is a downside is if you severely miscontrol it. You run your 40 supply of army into 80 supply of the Protoss. And then your other 80 supply against 80 supply. And that's fair game, right? But if it's just, I have 80 army supply, you have 40, I split my army in half, you're going to have trouble no matter where you go. It's going to be tough. So all tied up now. With a potential recovery, I guess, like ShoWTimE was showing. Gotta wonder what would happen if the Widowmine drop hadn't done as much damage. Had there been a pull on the probes to reduce it down to 2, you know, is the best you'd usually hope for. Or even like 5, 7 probes killed instead of 15. You wonder what would happen. But that was way too much damage to take. Top left of now Moondance, it is ShoWTimE. In the bottom right we have Spirit. I said it before, I'll say it again. I'm always surprised when I see Moondance enter into a best of 3 in this matchup. Clearly, this means that Protoss have bigger issues with other maps in the matchup, and that's fair game. You know, I'm not as good as these guys. Fair enough. But whenever I see this matchup on Moondance, I have a sinking feeling in my stomach for the Protoss. There are just a couple of builds that are so brutal on this map that even the most prepared Protoss have difficulty defending against it. And then for the times where you start to just anticipate, so you're almost trying to like hard counter this 1-3-1, I guess is what we call it, 3 barracks, 1 factory build, is the time when the Terrans doing, you know, macro build themselves, 3cc, 1-1-1, like whatever, and you're just like, oh shit. So that's why I perceive the difficulty to lie is in the threat of that very fast 2-base push. It's obviously not super overpowered, otherwise no one would ever pick this map. The other ones, even if they weren't also that great, would be picked. But right now, the situation as far as the map pool does favor Terran in this matchup. So perhaps Protoss players are feeling a bit of damn if you do, damn if you don't situation. We'll see if Spirit does... That's not a best of 5, by the way. Sorry, guys. We'll see if Spirit does end up doing the push that I'm talking about. Just notice the lack of starport. Boom, you got it. ShoWTimE will also be keeping a keen eye, and to do so, he might once again opt to go for a Stargate opener. 2 Stargate openers so far. So I think ShoWTimE has really just been loving the Stargate opener the last couple of months. Seems like over 80% of his PvTs have been Stargate openers. But every now and again, he does still throw in Twilight Council. So it's not, it's not a given necessarily, but yeah, another Stargate opener. It is certainly the best versatile option the Protoss has. The Twilight Council, when it finishes its upgrade, when it finishes Blink, is great. Has the offense and defense and scouting and map control that you would want, but it takes a long time to get there. So a lot of the earlier options still are threats, and until that Blink is done, even kind of like the mid-early options are still actually a bit of a threat. Stargates gets the scouting really as fast as, I guess, as possible. Technically, maybe, well, like a Sentry first, I guess, would get scouting as fast as possible. Who does that? Maybe it's actually, is Sentry seconds? They still get in time? I'm not sure. You know what? It doesn't really matter. 'Cause the point is no one does that. A Stargate opener it is. And obviously, if you go for a Stargate, don't need a Sentry to hallucinate. So the Oracle's going to swoop in, see what it is, and right now, seeing as it is a 1-1-1, is going to, I guess, relieve the stress of that potential push that I was talking about. That can be dealt with 100%, totally can be dealt with, but it's just really brutal to do so. This opens up more of the mid-game PvT. And then, of course, the late game. So we talk about 2 players that are well known for their macro late game. Oracle has hit the scouts. And there it is. So Widowmine drop. Good old-fashioned Widowmine drop. Even sees the 3rd CC get placed down, so really has all of the information. That is excellent. I'd be surprised the Spirit wasn't anticipating this, though. Just again, Stargate openers are so popular, especially with ShoWTimE. And I think especially on this map. So, I don't know, I'm guessing Spirit was kind of going with a... If they're going to see me, they might as well see me kind of being normal and greedy, I guess. Couple SCVs going down to some Oracle harassments. We got 2 gas guys just coming up back at home already. ShoWTimE is going to have to go to Twilight Council and a Robo. How do you expect, I guess, much else? It's usually the double. And the extra gateways. It's kind of just now about who's going to outgreed each other. ShoWTimE knows that an attack is unlikely until Stim is done and medevacs are on the way, right? Technically there's a medevac, but it's not going to be used. Spirit doesn't think it's worthwhile, seeing as a Phoenix could be flying around trying to get that medevac. It is going to be Phoenix into charge, and then into Colossus. And for Spirit, well, you know, it's Terran, so we're gonna wait to see a lot of bio. If he was gonna take the third CC in the back, you would kind of expect him to go for on location. Even though the Oracles might be a bit of a pain for that, still would have expected it. He might go ahead and take the forward third base, and that's exactly what he does, leaving the fourth base as the safe one, perhaps even later on. That's how he wants to play it. But that gives him the full base right off the bat. ShoWTimE is now on 6 gases, 65 probes. Charge and +1 are on the way. The robotics bay, I believe, with its timing, should have definitely 1 Colossus. The question is it going to have 2 Colossus by the time that Spirit is ready to go? When Spirit's ready to go, it's going to be with a hefty amount of bio units. Good amount of Marauders especially. So ShoWTimE absolutely still has to worry about the attack. I mean, they've delayed any aggression towards each other by choosing to do what they've done. In particular, Spirit kind of setting that pace with the third CC being so quick and then immediately scouted. But eventually we're going to have a clash, and it's still going to be scary for both players. I don't think anyone really got ahead here with their particular build orders. Double Oracle continues to be annoying, so there's that. So far, ShoWTimE playing a perfect game, but not to any super significant degree. I mean, total of 7 workers, 2 oracles. That's not what a Terran wants. Considering how often we are to just kind of scoff at the oracles, especially the longer the game goes. Oh, stasis traps. Oh, scouting. No need to worry about my SCVs anymore. Gotcha. And that is the first Colossus about to finish. Stim's done, Combat Shields is done, Marauder Slow is almost done, but Spirit is not really gearing up for a huge attack right as those upgrades finished. We only just now have the move out. The second Colossus has started up, and while if Spirit made his way over to the third base right here, right now, it would not be prepared. Spirit is not doing that. Getting into 2-2 upgrades, and a Ghost Academy taking a lot of his resources away. And he's close to being supply blocked. Actually wasn't going to be unless these zealots kill the supply depots. Yeah, he's not going to be. Perfect, then. Perfect. But this is looking more like a Spirit's late game macro type of game. Yeah, fourth base is now on the way as well. Defensive bunker being set up. ShoWTimE has been moving into a fourth base already anyways, even before that revelation. And the zealot run by. I guess he hasn't seen the fourth base because it's on location quite yet. But yeah, this is going into super macro. Super. So ShoWTimE should be able to get up to, what, 3 Colossus and Disruptors? I might take out 2 Colossus into Disruptors. Get up to his Blink, add on some Stalkers, eventually add on those Dark Templar. Darktron's already on the way. And 4 bases for now, I think will definitely turn into 5. Then more of a question about the 6th base. Then we might actually have some struggles getting to a 6th base for either player. Not sure who's gonna have more trouble, but I'm gonna guess it's gonna be Spirit. Spirit's playing a very macro-oriented style, very defensive style as well. Prioritizing the upgrades, prioritizing Ghost Academy. Getting a 4th base on location is a bit bold and has been delayed a little bit here, but it's clearly looking towards that setup. Also just added on a 2nd starport. And no move out during all of that. No move out. Not even the medevac drop with mines, because he figured it'd be useless. Which is probably right, but still. We're finally getting some action, and it's gonna immediately just turn into Spirit running into too good of a stasis trap to do anything more. If he was thinking of chasing, moving across the map, definitely not anymore. War Prism has picked up a couple of zealots, and might even warp in some DTs. No Vikings there to defend against it. That's a War Prism with speed, by the way, already ready to go. The Vikings are moving to intercept. That is going to take care of it, and actually fairly easily. Spirit, most importantly, should not be overreacting. So as a lot of the army started to move to the main base, it does quickly realize it's best suited elsewhere. A scan reveals the army exactly where he suspected it to be, because where else would a Protoss be pushing? And now he's going to try and collapse in on it. ShoWTimE perhaps misreading this. Is a little late to the pullback, but there is one safe exit. And it was down that choke. Oh, safe is a relative term, I suppose. They're going to lose that Colossus. The recall was haphazard, so some of the units are going to be chased down, or will they? A little disruptor shot if ShoWTimE's paying attention. I don't believe that he is. Nope, that was not a sneaky attack at all. DTs do head into the third base, though. Kill the bunker, start working on the center tower, and they're going to maybe even work on the third command center, but Spirit smells blood in the water. He's going to go for it. Two Colossus still live, but really not engaging in combat currently, as a Phoenix is sacrificed to hold off a little bit, and the Nexus as well. That is a sacrifice that is very much worth it. ShoWTimE needed the extra couple of warpins, extra couple of robo units to actually have a decent engagement. If he had taken the fifth base defense, probably would have died right then and there. But losing the fifth base is not the end of the world. Losing his army absolutely would be. Probes are not going down to the main base as well as the main base Nexus, so this is doing a lot of damage. ShoWTimE needs to be careful about how he engages here, but it is going to be tough because he's got another army to worry about. That's another Nexus gone, but this army does not have any medivacs. The Blink DTs actually used to try and kind of force field right there. It was somewhat effective, but EMP'd initially. Disruptor's getting big shots despite some last-second splits, but the chaos continues as the main base continues to be ransacked. Denied +2 attack. Stalls out +2 armor, 7 seconds away from finishing, and got more probes at that fourth base. ShoWTimE down in supply currently, down in army, down in workers, and obviously down in Nexus is one of the biggest problems. 1,300 minerals in the bank will allow him to basically triple expand. So that's the good news. But while he's triple expanding, he will not be mining very efficiently. And he's literally triple expanding. That's what he should be doing, but even he realizes that's not going to be enough. He's going to be continuing to be picked apart throughout the rest of this game, and he just taps out. GG, Spirits with, I think, a bit of an upset. Defeating ShoWTimE to move on. I don't think they have a super one-sided history, but if I'm guessing, I would say that it's ShoWTimE-sided.